The Johto region is filled with vibrant landscapes, from golden fields to crystal clear lakes. But hidden within these places are Pokémon so rare, catching them feels like an adventure all on its own. Tonight, we'll journey across Johto and uncover the stories of its most elusive creatures, exploring why they are so hard to find and the challenges they bring to patient trainers. In the Johto region, Heracross stands as one of the most elusive bug and fighting type Pokémon, not because it hides deep within caves or behind complicated puzzles, but because of the very specific way it appears in the wild. Unlike most Pokémon you encounter by simply walking through tall grass, Heracross requires you to interact with the world in a more hands-on way. In gold, silver, and crystal, as well as in heart gold and soul silver, Heracross is found by using the headbutt move on certain trees. At first glance, this sounds simple: just find a tree, use headbutt, and battle whatever drops down. But this is where the challenge begins. In the Johto region, one of the hardest Pokémon to catch, known for its gentle nature and signature egg it carries, Chansey has always been a rare sight. In Johto, that rarity is no different, and for some trainers, finding one can feel like chasing a dream. In the wild, Chansey can be encountered in specific routes, such as Route 42 and the grassy areas near the Safari Zone Gate in Pokémon Heart Gold and Soul Silver. However, its encounter rate is still extremely low, often around 1% or even less depending on the location. This means a trainer might meet hundreds of wild Pokémon before a single Chansey appears. Adding to the challenge, Chansey's catch rate is infamously low. Even if you're lucky enough to spot one, getting it into a Pokéball is far from guaranteed. Its tendency to flee from battle in earlier games makes the experience even more frustrating, as a single wrong move or unlucky moment can cause it to vanish entirely. Some players choose to increase their chances by using abilities like Cute Charm, which can draw in Pokémon of the opposite gender, or by using special items to boost encounter rates. But even with these tricks, Chansey remains a test of patience. The reward, however, is worth it. Catching a Chansey not only adds a rare Pokémon to your collection, but also grants access to one of the best support Pokémon in battle, thanks to its massive HP and ability to heal its allies. In Johto's lore, Chansey is considered a sign of good fortune, and it is often associated with Pokémon centers, where it helps Nurse Joy heal injured Pokémon. This connection gives the hunt for Chansey an extra layer of charm. It's not just a rare catch, it's a symbol of kindness and care in the Pokémon world. For many players, the moment they finally catch Chansey in Johto becomes one of the most memorable parts of their journey. The long hours of searching, the tense moments of throwing Pokeballs, and the eventual success make it a story worth telling long after the adventure is over. Not all trees are created equal. In Johto, there are two types of headbutt trees, common ones and special ones. While common trees can produce a variety of Pokémon like Caterpie, Weedle, or Hoot Hoot, the special trees are the only ones that have a chance of producing Heracross. The game never tells you which trees are special, so players must test them one by one. The process becomes a repetitive routine of finding a tree, using headbutt, and hoping for the best, only to often be greeted by a Pokémon that is not Heracross. Even when you do find one of these special trees, the encounter rate for Heracross is still low, often around 15% or less, depending on the location. This means you may need to knock on the same tree dozens of times before you even see one. And unlike some rare Pokémon that appear in a fixed location or through a one-time event, Heracross requires constant trial and error, with no guarantees on when success will come. Once you do encounter Heracross, the challenge doesn't end there. Its catch rate is not extremely low compared to legendaries, but it can still break free from Pokeballs if you aren't prepared. Heracross's natural strength also makes the battle risky. It can knock out your Pokemon quickly if you underestimate it. Moves like Horn Attack or Counter can deal significant damage, and if your team is underleveled, you might lose the battle entirely. In the early days of Gold and Silver, many players didn't even realize Heracross existed, since it was not found in any standard grass patches, and the headbutt mechanic was still relatively new. It wasn't until guides and word of mouth spread through playground conversations, online forums, and official strategy books that Heracross became known as a hidden powerhouse worth the effort. Heracross is not just rare, it's also a highly valuable addition to a team. Its bug and fighting typing is unique in Johto, giving it advantages against powerful opponents like Dark-type and Psychic-type Pokémon when paired with the right moves. It can learn attacks like Brick Break, Mega Horn, and Earthquake, making it a formidable physical attacker. Trainers who went through the trouble of finding and catching one often found that it paid off in major battles, especially in the later stages of the game. The lore and design of Heracross also add to its appeal. Inspired by the rhinoceros beetle, a real-world insect known for its incredible strength, Heracross carries a massive horn that it uses to throw opponents in battle. In the Pokédex, it's described as a gentle creature when not in combat, living peacefully in forests and feeding on tree sap. This dual nature calm in the wild, but a powerhouse in battle, makes it an interesting and memorable Pokémon to hunt for. In Heart Gold and Soul Silver, finding Heracross can be made slightly easier with a little knowledge of which trees have the best odds, but the process still requires patience. In these remakes, some players make a habit of setting up in one location with multiple special trees, repeatedly using Headbutt to check each one in a rotation until Heracross finally appears. The moment it drops down from the branches feels incredibly rewarding, almost as if you've shaken loose a hidden treasure from the forest canopy. Part of what makes catching Heracross so satisfying is the personal effort required. It's not a Pokémon you can stumble upon while doing something else. Every encounter with Heracross represents a deliberate choice to keep trying, even after multiple failed attempts. It's a test of persistence as much as it is a test of skill. When you finally capture Heracross in Johto, you know you've earned it. The combination of tracking down the right trees, enduring low encounter rates, and facing the risk of losing it in battle creates a layered challenge that stays in a trainer's memory. For many, that first successful catch remains one of the highlights of their Johto journey. Among Johto's trio of roaming legendary beasts, Raikou is notorious for testing the patience and persistence of even the most skilled trainers. Unlike most rare Pokémon that occupy a single location, Raikou moves freely across the entire region once it is awakened, making it not only rare to find, but also extremely difficult to catch. The combination of unpredictable movement, a tendency to flee instantly, and a low catch rate cements it as one of the most frustrating encounters in the Pokémon series. In the Johto region, Miltank might not be the first Pokémon that comes to mind when thinking about elusive catches, but for trainers who have searched for one in the wild, it quickly earns its place among the hardest to find. Known for its pastel pink hide and dairy-themed design, Miltank became iconic after its appearance on Whitney's team in Goldenrod City Gym. That battle left countless players frustrated thanks to its combination of high speed, surprisingly strong defense, and the infamous move rollout. But catching a Miltank for yourself in the wild? That's an entirely different kind of challenge. In gold, silver, and crystal, as well as their heart gold and soul silver remakes, Miltank's primary wild locations are the fields around Route 38 and Route 39, just outside of Olivine City. While this might sound simple, the actual encounter rate for Miltank in these areas is surprisingly low, often hovering around 5% or less. This means that for every 100 encounters you have in these grassy fields, you might only see a Miltank 5 times if you are lucky. It's not uncommon for players to spend over an hour walking back and forth through the grass, encountering everything from Rattata to Magnemite, before finally seeing the rounded ears and pink form of a Miltank emerge. Once found, Miltank isn't particularly difficult to weaken or capture compared to other rare Pokémon, but there's still a challenge involved. Miltank's moveset often includes Stomp or Body Slam, which can paralyze your Pokémon, as well as Milk Drink, a recovery move that can heal away your hard-earned damage. If you aren't careful, this can drag the battle out and increase the risk of running out of Pokéballs or accidentally knocking it out with a critical hit. One factor that makes Miltank more memorable as a rare catch is how closely it's tied to the region's lore. The Moo Farm, located between Route 38 and Route 39, features a sick Miltank in need of healing. By bringing it berries, you can nurse it back to health, a side quest that made many players form a fond connection to the species. The idea of catching your own healthy, strong Miltank after helping one recover at the farm carries a narrative weight that adds to the satisfaction of the hunt. Miltank is more than just a novelty. In battle, it is a defensive powerhouse with access to a wide variety of utility moves. It can use Heal Bell to cure your team of status conditions, Milk Drink to keep itself healthy, and even offensive options like Earthquake to catch opponents off guard. For competitive players, Miltank's combination of bulk, speed, and support capabilities makes it a valuable asset in certain team builds. This practical utility means that for some trainers, the effort to find one is not just about completing the Pokédex, it's about gaining a reliable team member. In the original Gold and Silver days, the search for Miltank was often made more challenging by the lack of online guides. Many players assumed that since Whitney's gym was relatively early in the game, Miltank must be more common in the wild, only to be surprised at how rare it actually was. Others didn't realize that its low encounter rate could make it take as long to find as some pseudo-legendaries. In the remakes, the situation is much the same, with the encounter rates preserved, meaning that even modern players can find themselves pacing those same grassy patches for long stretches of time. The process of catching Miltank teaches patience and attentiveness. Because it shares its habitat with a variety of other Pokémon, many of which are far more common, the repeated disappointment of not finding it can lead some trainers to give up entirely. But for those who persist, the payoff is rewarding not only for the capture itself, but for the sense of accomplishment that comes with it. In the end, Miltank may not have the mystical allure of a legendary Pokémon or the shock value of a shiny encounter, but its scarcity in the wild, coupled with its battle prowess and memorable role in Johto's storyline, make it one of the region's most satisfying rare catches. Trainers who have braved the fields of Route 38 and Route 39, enduring encounter after encounter, know that seeing Miltank's distinctive shape in the tall grass is an experience worth treasuring. In Johto, Larvitar holds a special place among the most difficult Pokémon to catch, not just because of its rarity, but because of the journey it takes to even reach its habitat. Larvitar is a rock and ground type Pokémon that eventually evolves into the powerful Tyranitar, making it one of the most coveted Pokémon in the entire series. But unlike many rare Pokémon that you might stumble across while exploring, Larvitar lives in an area that is both remote and demanding to access the base of Mount Silver. In Gold, Silver, and Crystal, as well as in Heart Gold and Soul Silver, Larvitar is only found in the wild within Mount Silver's lower floors. This location isn't available to you until after you've completed the Johto League, obtained all 8 badges in the Kanto region, and unlocked the ability to travel there. By this point, you've already gone through 2 entire regions worth of challenges, meaning Larvitar is one of the very last Pokémon you can encounter in the game. This makes it a sort of post-game prize, reserved only for the most dedicated trainers. Once you finally gain access to Mount Silver, you still have to contend with Larvitar's encounter rate, which is notoriously low. In most games, it sits at around 10% or even less, depending on the floor. That means you're much more likely to encounter other Pokémon like Onix, Golbat, or Ursaring while searching through the dark caves. Each encounter is a moment of anticipation, followed by disappointment, until eventually that small green form appears, standing out against the rocky background. Catching Larvitar is also tricky due to its stats and moveset. While it's not as defensively bulky as its later evolutions, it can still take a few hits, and its offensive moves can wear down your team if you're not careful. The bigger risk comes from accidentally knocking it out yourself, because by the time you reach Mount Silver, your team is likely very high leveled. Trainers must plan ahead, bringing weaker Pokémon, false swipe users, or status moves like Sleep Powder to make the capture safer. Another layer of difficulty comes from the time investment required, getting to Mount. Silver isn't a short walk, it's a journey across the map, through areas with high-level wild Pokémon and into the depths of a cave system. Even with repels to speed up travel, the sheer process of making attempt after attempt to find Larvitar can stretch into hours. Some players report searching for several hours without seeing one, especially if they are unlucky with encounter rolls. In Heart Gold and Soul Silver, the graphics and atmosphere of Mount Silver add to the challenge's weight. The dim lighting, rocky walls, and distant sound effects make the cave feel like a place where a rare Pokémon would truly reside. The moment Larvitar appears, it feels almost like you've stumbled upon a secret treasure hidden deep in the earth. The effort to catch Larvitar is worth it for those who want a Tyranitar. Tyranitar is a pseudo-legendary with massive stats, a fearsome presence in battle, and a reputation for being one of the most powerful Pokémon in the Johto and Kanto regions combined. But evolving Larvitar into Tyranitar is a long process, as it requires leveling it first into Pupitar and then again into its final form at level 55, one of the highest evolution requirements in the series. For players committed to the task, catching Larvitar is just the first step in a long, rewarding grind. For many trainers, catching Larvitar isn't just about completing the Pokédex or building a strong team. It's about the satisfaction of overcoming a multi-layered challenge, unlocking Mount Silver, enduring low encounter rates, managing the risk of battle, and investing the time needed to achieve it. It's a personal badge of perseverance, proof that you've gone the distance in your Johto adventure. Some players also recall their first Larvitar catch as a defining moment in their Pokémon journey, not because it was flashy, like a legendary, but because it was a rare encounter that required patience, planning, and skill. Seeing it appear after a long search creates a quiet, lasting sense of accomplishment that stays with you long after the game is over. In the Johto region, Pseudo-Wudo is a rare Pokémon not because of a low encounter rate in grassy patches, but because of its unique method of encounter. Unlike most Pokémon you can find by simply walking through tall grass or surfing on water, Sudowoodo's appearance is tied to a one-time, event-style battle that you must trigger in a specific way. For many players, their first experience with Sudowoodo was not as a sought-after rare catch, but as a literal roadblock, quite literally standing in the middle of Route 36, preventing passage between Violet City and Goldenrod City. At first, Sudowoodo is disguised as an oddly shaped tree blocking the path. You can't battle it, you can't walk around it, and cutting it down with the Cut HM does nothing. This is because Sudowoodo's gimmick is that it isn't actually a tree at all. It's a rock-type Pokémon with a deceptive, plant-like appearance. To reveal its true nature, you need to obtain a special item called the Squirt Bottle. This requires progressing through the game far enough to reach Goldenrod City, beating Whitney's gym, and then talking to a particular NPC in the flower shop. Only after you've completed these steps and returned to the tree can you attempt the encounter. This unusual requirement already makes Sudowoodo rare. There's only one in the entire game, and if you knock it out instead of catching it, you won't get another chance unless you reset your game. Because of this, trainers who accidentally fainted Sudowoodo often had to restart from an earlier save just to try again. The pressure of knowing this was a one-shot encounter added to the tension of the battle, especially for players unfamiliar with its rock typing, which leaves it vulnerable to water and grass moves, but resistant to many others. Once the battle begins, Sudowoodo's challenge comes from its sturdy defenses and tricky moveset. It can use Flail, which becomes more powerful as its HP drops, potentially catching unprepared trainers off guard. Its rock typing also means that some of your Pokémon might struggle to deal damage without accidentally knocking it out. Combine that with the possibility of self-inflicted damage if it uses Struggle after running out of moves, and you have a situation where catching it requires careful planning. Beyond its rarity as a one-time encounter, Sudowoodo has a unique charm. Its quirky design, based on a tree mimic, and its role as a literal roadblock make it one of the most memorable Pokémon in Johto. Many players remember the first time they used the Squirt Bottle and were surprised to see the tree shake and attack. This novelty factor gives Sudowoodo a special place in the memories of those who played Gold, Silver, and Crystal during their original release, as well as in the later Heart Gold and Soul Silver remakes. From a competitive perspective, Sudowoodo has some interesting qualities. While it's not a top-tier battler, its high defense and solid attack stat make it a decent choice in lower-tier battles, and its ability to use moves like Rock Slide, Earthquake, and Explosion give it utility in specific situations. However, the main draw for most trainers is simply having it in their collection, because owning a Pokémon that exists only in one spot in the game adds a certain prestige to your Pokédex. Catching Sudowoodo is more than just acquiring another Pokémon. It's about participating in a little bit of Johto's environmental storytelling. The region is full of landmarks and special events, but few are as instantly recognizable as the strange tree blocking the path. Overcoming that obstacle is a milestone in the journey, and adding Sudowoodo to your team or storage box is a physical reminder of that accomplishment. In Johto, There are rare Pokemon that are difficult to find, and then there are Pokemon so unique that they exist only once in the entire game. The red Gyarados is one such Pokemon, a shiny Gyarados that has become one of the most iconic encounters in the entire Pokemon series. Unlike most shiny Pokemon, which are found through extremely rare odds, this one is guaranteed to appear. But while its appearance is scripted, that doesn't make catching it any less special or significant, especially for trainers experiencing a shiny encounter for the first time. The red Gyarados can be found at the Lake of Rage, north of Mahogany Town. The story behind it adds to its mystique in the game's narrative. The red Gyarados was once a normal Magikarp living in the lake. However, the villainous Team Rocket began using a radio signal to forcibly induce Pokemon evolution. This unnatural process caused the Magikarp to evolve into a Gyarados prematurely, which in turn triggered its unique red coloration. Before you can encounter it, you need to make your way through Johto's mid-game progression. You'll pass through Mahogany Town and hear rumors of something unusual happening at the Lake of Rage. When you arrive, you'll find the massive red Gyarados thrashing in the center of the water, instantly drawing your attention. The scene is memorable: the calm ripples of the lake, the dark sky overhead, and this enormous crimson sea serpent waiting to be challenged. The battle itself can be deceptively tricky. Gyarados is level 30, meaning it hits hard with moves like Dragon Rage and Bite. Even though it's a fixed encounter, catching it still requires care. Knocking it out would mean losing the opportunity to own one of the game's most famous Pokemon. Trainers often save before the battle, ensuring they can retry if things go wrong. Ultra Balls or Great Balls are recommended, but even then, Gyarados' catch rate can make the fight tense. Once caught, the red Gyarados becomes more than just a strong water and flying type. It's also one of the earliest shiny Pokemon most players will ever own. In Gold and Silver, shiny Pokemon were a brand new concept, and the developers used this encounter to introduce players to the idea. In later generations, this moment has been referenced and remembered as a milestone for fans. But the encounter's importance goes beyond the battle itself. Defeating or catching the red Gyarados triggers the next phase of the storyline, where you team up with Lance, the Dragon-type champion, to storm the Team Rocket hideout in Mahogany Town. This mission connects your personal rare catch to the larger plot of the Johto region, giving it narrative weight. From a gameplay perspective, owning a Gyarados is a huge advantage. Its strong attack stat, intimidating presence, and access to moves like Surf, Ice Fang, and later Earthquake make it a powerhouse. And because this particular one is shiny, it carries a visual uniqueness that sets it apart from every other Pokemon you'll encounter in Johto. For many players, the memory of seeing that bright red sea serpent is burned into their mind. It's one of those defining Pokemon experiences that stays with you long after the adventure is over. And while it may not be hard to find in the traditional sense, its status as a one-time encounter and its legendary place in Pokemon history make it a rare and treasured part of the Johto journey. In Johto, Miltank is not only known for being the Pokemon of Whitney, the Goldenrod City gym leader, but also for being surprisingly tricky to catch for those who want one of their own. While it may not be a one-time legendary or event Pokemon, its rarity comes from its limited habitat, encounter rate, and the fact that most players first meet it as a formidable opponent before ever seeing it in the wild. Miltank can be found in the wild on routes 38 and 39, both located in the northwestern part of Johto. However, even in these areas, the encounter rate is low. you'll more often run into common Pokémon like Rattata, Meowth, or Tauros before a Miltank appears. This low chance means that simply finding one may require a significant amount of patience. Trainers who are determined to catch it often spend long stretches of time running through tall grass, battling or fleeing from dozens upon dozens of other Pokémon, hoping to see the distinctive light pink body and horned head of a Miltank emerge from the grass. When players finally do encounter a Miltank in the wild, catching it presents its own set of challenges. Miltank is surprisingly durable, boasting high defense and good overall stats for a non-evolved Pokémon. This bulk allows it to take hits without going down easily, but it also means you have to whittle its health down carefully without accidentally fainting it. The difficulty is heightened if you first remember Miltank from Whitney's infamous gym battle. That Miltank used Rollout, a move that grows stronger with each hit and often devastated unprepared teams. While wild Miltank aren't always as dangerous as Whitney's, they still have access to frustrating moves like Stomp, which can cause flinching, and Milk Drink, which heals them mid-battle, potentially undoing all your hard work in weakening them. A wild Miltank healing itself multiple times can make the capture process drag on far longer than expected. From a gameplay perspective, Miltank is worth the effort. It's a normal type Pokémon with impressive speed and physical defense, making it a reliable tank and utility Pokémon. It can learn moves like Body Slam, Earthquake, and even Heal Bell, which allows it to support a team by removing status effects. Its unique balance of strength, speed, and supportive abilities has made it a niche but respected choice in competitive play, especially in lower-tier formats. Beyond battles, Miltank also has a special connection to Johto's world building. On Route 39, near Olivine City, you'll find the Moo Farm, where a sick Miltank named Moo needs berries to get better. This side quest is memorable because it shows the softer side of the Pokémon world, where helping a single Pokémon recover feels just as important as defeating a gym leader. For many trainers, this moment makes finally catching a Miltank in the wild feel like meeting an old friend. Catching Miltank is not about legendary status or rare, shiny odds. It's about persistence and preparation. You know it's out there, somewhere in the grass, but getting it to show up and stay in a Pokeball takes patience. And once you've caught it, you have not just a strong and dependable Pokemon, but a piece of Johto's history and personality right there on your team. In the Johto region, Larvitar is one of the most elusive Pokemon you can find, and for good reason. It hides deep within one of the most secret and late-game locations in the entire region. Many players go through most of their Johto journey without ever seeing one in the wild, and those who want to add it to their team must commit to a hunt that requires both patience and progress in the game's story. Larvitar's only known natural habitat in Johto is Mount Silver, a towering, snow-covered mountain located far to the west. To even access Mount Silver, you must have already defeated all 8 Johto gym leaders, taken down the Elite Four, and obtained all 8 Kanto badges, essentially becoming one of the most accomplished trainers in the Pokémon world. This makes Larvitar a Pokémon you cannot even attempt to catch until you are at the peak of your trainer career. Once you've finally reached Mount Silver, the search begins. Larvitar appears only on certain floors within the mountain, usually near the lower areas, where the rocky caverns and tunnels twist into a maze. Even here, its encounter rate is painfully low, often around 5% or less. You may find yourself running into dozens of Onix, Golbat, or other cave-dwelling Pokémon before even seeing the shadow of a Larvitar. This rarity makes it feel almost mythical in its own way, as if the mountain itself is testing your persistence. When you do encounter Larvitar, the challenge shifts from finding it to catching it. While it's not as high level as some of the other Pokémon in Mount Silver, it is still capable of holding its own in battle. Moves like Screech can lower your defenses, and Bite can chip away at your health while you work to weaken it. Because this is a Pokémon you can only obtain late in the game, most players already have strong teams by this point, which can make it tricky to avoid accidentally knocking it out. Careful use of false swipe or status conditions like sleep or paralysis can greatly improve your odds. Part of Larvitar's appeal comes from what it eventually becomes. This small, rocky Pokémon evolves into Pupitar at level 30, and then into the mighty Tyranitar at level 55, one of the most powerful non-legendary Pokémon in the series. This incredible potential makes Larvitar a highly coveted catch for both competitive players and casual fans alike. Owning one feels like having a rare gem that, with enough training, can become a powerhouse capable of taking on almost anything. In the Pokémon world's lore, Larvitar is said to be born deep underground and spends much of its early life eating through soil and rock before emerging to the surface. This fits perfectly with its placement in Mount Silver, a remote, harsh environment far removed from the bustling towns and cities of Johto. Catching one feels like uncovering a hidden treasure buried beneath layers of challenge and dedication. For many trainers, adding Larvitar to their team in Johto isn't just about the battle potential. It's about the story of the hunt, the long journey to even reach Mount Silver, the hours of searching in its winding caves, and the satisfaction of finally seeing that rare green and tan figure appear in the darkness. It's one of those moments in Pokémon that you remember long after you've moved on to other regions, a reminder of the patience and determination that catching rare Pokémon often requires. Sudowoodo is one of the most unusual, rare Pokémon in the Johto region because its scarcity has nothing to do with low encounter rates or hidden locations. Instead, it is rare because there is only one in the entire game, and you must solve a small puzzle to even face it. This unique approach to rarity makes Sudowoodo stand out in Johto's roster, and for many players, it becomes a memorable moment early in their journey. You first hear about Sudowoodo indirectly. While traveling between Goldenrod City and Ecruteak City, you'll eventually come across Route 36. Here, the road is blocked by what appears to be a small tree standing in the middle of the path. At first glance, it looks like an ordinary tree that might be cleared with the Cut HM, but the game makes it clear that this tree is something unusual. It wobbles when you try to interact with it, as though it's alive. This creates a small mystery. What exactly is this strange obstruction? You can't do anything about it immediately. To progress, you first need to make your way to Goldenrod City and eventually obtain the Squirt Bottle, a special item given to you by a woman in the Goldenrod flower shop. She only hands it over after you've defeated Whitney, the city's gym leader, making this a mandatory part of your story progression. Once you have the Squirt Bottle, you can return to the Wiggling Tree. When you use the Squirt Bottle on it, the tree suddenly springs to life, revealing itself to be Sudowoodo, a rock-type Pokémon that disguises itself as a tree to avoid predators. This encounter is completely unique. There are no other Sudowoodo in the wild in gold, silver, or crystal, meaning you get only one chance to catch it in your Johto playthrough. If you accidentally fainted, that's it. Your only other option is to trade for one from another game. The battle with Sudowoodo is distinctive because of its type. Being a pure rock type, it takes heavy damage from water and grass type moves, which can be risky since those same moves can easily knock it out if you're not careful. Trainers often need to rely on weaker attacks, status effects like sleep or paralysis, and plenty of Pokeballs to secure the catch. Adding to the challenge, Sudowoodo can use moves like Low Kick, Rock Throw, and Flail, which can deal surprising damage to unprepared teams. In terms of lore, Sudowoodo is fascinating because it embodies one of Pokemon's long-running themes, creatures in the world adapting to their environments in unusual ways. Its tree-like appearance allows it to blend seamlessly into the forests and roads of Johto, fooling both predators and trainers alike. This is also why the squirt bottle is required. The sudden splash of water startles Sudowoodo, forcing it to reveal its true nature. Catching Sudowoodo is rewarding not only because it's a one-of-a-kind encounter, but also because it's a surprisingly versatile Pokémon in battle. With its solid defense stat and access to strong rock-type moves, it can counter flying types effectively. It also has quirky move options like Mimic, which can copy an opponent's move mid-battle, adding a layer of unpredictability. Once captured, the road between Goldenrod and Ecruteak is permanently cleared, making this event feel like an important turning point in your journey. It's a rare example of a Pokémon encounter that directly affects the overworld, altering the game map and opening up new travel routes. The memory of catching Sudowoodo often sticks with players because of how unusual the encounter is. Unlike most rare Pokémon that hide in distant caves or require hours of searching, this one stands right in your way, plain as day. You just need to figure out how to make it move. That blend of puzzle solving and battling makes it one of Johto's most charming and unforgettable rare Pokémon encounters. The journey to encountering Raikou begins at the burned tower in Ecruteak City. During the storyline, you'll discover the lower floor of the tower, where three legendary beasts, Raikou, Entei, and Suicune, are slumbering. The moment you approach, they awaken and dash off in different directions across Johto, beginning their role as roaming Pokémon. From this point forward, Raikou will appear on random routes, constantly moving to new areas as you travel. This roaming mechanic is a key part of what makes catching it so difficult. You can't simply camp at a single location and wait. Locating Raikou requires both luck and strategy. The most efficient method is to track its movements using the Pokégear's map function, which will show its current location in real time. However, even with tracking, the moment you change routes to try to intercept it, Raikou might move somewhere else, forcing you to chase it again. This game of cat and mouse can last for hours, with trainers often encountering the wrong roaming beast multiple times before finally running into Raikou. When you finally encounter it in the wild, the challenge is far from over. Raikou's behavior in battle is infamously frustrating. On the very first turn, it will almost always use Roar to immediately flee, ending the battle before you even get the chance to attack or throw a Pokéball. This means you have to either prevent it from escaping or hope you can weaken it in the few turns it gives you. Moves like Mean Look or abilities that trap opponents are critical for pinning it down. In the remake's Heart Gold and Soul Silver, you might also rely on Wobbuffet's Shadow Tag ability to stop it from running. Raikou's catch rate is extremely low, meaning even after you've trapped it, it might take dozens of Ultra Balls to secure the capture. Its electric typing also means it's immune to paralysis, from moves like Thunder Wave if used by electric types, requiring a different approach to status effects. Sleep remains the most reliable option. Players often weaken Raikou over multiple encounters, since its health remains the same between battles. This tactic can make the final capture attempt much easier, but it requires patience to pull off. In terms of lore, Raikou is said to embody the speed of lightning. According to legend, it was resurrected by Ho-Oh after the original brass tower burned down, and its swiftness symbolizes the power and unpredictability of a lightning strike. This backstory adds an extra layer of meaning to its roaming nature. It is the physical representation of a sudden, powerful force that appears and disappears without warning. Visually, Raikou stands out with its saber-tooth-like fangs, cloud-like mane, and striking yellow and purple coloration. In battle, it boasts high speed and special attack stats, making it dangerous if it chooses to stay and fight. Its access to powerful electric-type moves like Thunder and Thunderbolt means it can devastate unprepared teams, especially those relying heavily on water or flying types. For many trainers, finally catching Raikou feels like a genuine accomplishment. It's a battle of patience, persistence, and smart planning. The moment its health is low, it's trapped on the field, and you see the Ultra Ball finally click shut after dozens of failed attempts. That's a victory worth celebrating. The difficulty of catching it ensures that owning Raikou in your collection carries a sense of pride, a testament to your determination as a Pokémon trainer. In the grand scheme of Johto's rare Pokémon, Raikou may not require a puzzle to reach like Sudowoodo, nor is it a guaranteed shiny like the red Gyarados, but it stands as a test of a player's endurance and willpower. Those who succeed know they've earned it, and that's why Raikou remains one of the most legendary catches in the entire region. In the Johto region, Steelix is not just a powerful Pokémon, it's a symbol of rarity and dedication. For many players in the original Gold, Silver, and Crystal versions, obtaining Steelix was one of the most challenging tasks in the game, not because of its strength alone, but because of the unusual requirements to even get one. Unlike many rare Pokémon that can be encountered in the wild, Steelix is most often obtained through trade evolution, meaning you must have both an Onyx and the elusive item known as the Metal Coat. In Johto, metal coats are not exactly lying around in abundance. They can only be found in extremely limited quantities, such as from defeating the rare Magnemite and Magneton in specific areas, or more reliably, from the SS Aqua after you've beaten the Elite Four. In the original games, that meant you couldn't even consider evolving your Onyx into Steelix until very late in your journey. Steelix's role as a trade evolution also meant that if you were playing without a friend who had another Game Boy and a link cable, your chances of ever obtaining one were slim. This was a major hurdle for younger players, especially in the late 1990s and early 2000s, when not every household had multiple systems or copies of the game. Even if you did have the ability to trade, convincing another player to send an Onyx holding a metal coat wasn't always easy, especially since once Steelix was yours, they couldn't get it back without repeating the same lengthy process. In the later Heart Gold and Soul Silver remakes, Steelix became a little more obtainable thanks to expanded wild encounter options, but it was still incredibly rare. In these versions, you could find Steelix deep in specific Safari Zone areas, but only after meeting certain customization conditions for the zone itself. This meant spending in-game days modifying the habitat before Steelix would even appear, than having to hunt for it among other wild Pokémon with low encounter rates. Steelix is worth the effort, though. In battle, it's one of the most defensive Pokémon in Johto, boasting a massive defense stat that allows it to absorb physical hits with ease. Its steel ground typing also makes it highly resistant to many common attack types, although it does come with a glaring weakness to water and fire moves. Lore-wise, Steelix is said to burrow deeper than any other Pokémon, surviving in extreme underground heat and pressure. It's a creature that feels both unstoppable and unshakable, and for trainers who finally add one to their team, it becomes a point of pride. The challenge of catching Steelix lies in patience and planning. Whether it's grinding for a metal coat and arranging a trade in the original games, or carefully customizing your safari zone in the remakes, there is no quick or easy method. Steelix is a Pokémon that demands commitment, and in return, it offers unmatched durability and presence. That's what makes it one of Johto's most sought-after catches, a true mark of dedication in a trainer's journey. Lapras in Johto is an exercise in timing, consistency, and a little bit of luck. Unlike most wild Pokémon that can be encountered at any time in certain locations, Lapras has a unique spawning rule. In the Union Cave of Johto, Lapras only appears on Fridays. That's right, one day a week. This means that if you forget or miss the opportunity, you'll have to wait an entire real-world week before you get another chance. This kind of restriction was rare in the Pokémon games of the time and made Lapras feel even more special to the players who managed to catch it. To even reach Lapras, you must first progress far enough into the game to access the lower levels of Union Cave, which requires the Surf ability. The cave itself is filled with strong, wild Pokémon and trainers that must be navigated before you can even think about finding Lapras. Once you've made it to the right spot on the right day, Lapras will be there, waiting in a calm underground lake, making the encounter feel more like a special meeting than a random battle. The difficulty doesn't end with just showing up. However, Lapras has a fairly low catch rate, and while it doesn't flee like roaming legendaries, it's bulky and can withstand many hits, which means battles can stretch on, increasing the risk of accidentally knocking it out. Because Lapras appears only once per week in the original games, accidentally fainting, it could mean waiting another 7 days for a rematch, or in some cases, being locked out entirely if you're too far along in the game's story. Lapras is more than worth the trouble. It has excellent typing in water, ice, allowing it to cover multiple weaknesses in your team. It also has a naturally high HP stat, making it very tanky and access to powerful moves like Ice Beam and Surf right from the start. In the game's lore, Lapras is a gentle Pokémon known for ferrying people across bodies of water. In the anime, Lapras played a major role as Ash's transportation throughout the Orange Islands arc, which only added to its popularity in the mainline games. In the remakes Heart Gold and Soul Silver, Lapras retained its Friday-only appearance, keeping its rarity intact. This design choice made the hunt for Lapras one of those appointment catches that players would mark on their calendar or set alarms for. It's a blend of scheduling, preparation, and careful battling, and for many players, that weekly wait only made catching Lapras more rewarding. When you finally add Lapras to your Johto team, it feels like more than just catching another Pokémon. It's like you've earned the companionship of a rare, majestic creature. It's an achievement that you'll remember long after you've moved on to other regions, and it stands as one of Johto's most unique and memorable catches. And with that, we've reached the end of our journey through Johto's most elusive Pokémon. From tricky single-encounter puzzles to the roaming legendaries that vanish the moment you find them. These catches are more than just battles. They're stories of patience, strategy, and persistence. Each one represents a unique challenge, a test of not only your team, but also your determination as a trainer. Whether it's the thrill of finally catching Raikou after hours of tracking, or the satisfaction of unlocking a rare encounter that most players miss, these moments stay with you long after the game is over. Few Pokémon in Johto are as instantly recognizable or as unforgettable as the red Gyarados that resides in the Lake of Rage. This is not only one of the rarest encounters in the entire region, but also one of the most famous, shiny Pokémon in the history of the series. It stands out for several reasons. It's guaranteed to be shiny, it's tied directly into the story, and it's a battle that feels cinematic and significant in a way few others do. The Lake of Rage is located to the north of Mahogany Town, surrounded by forest and connected by a small network of routes and waterways. Even before you arrive, people in nearby towns talk about strange happenings at the lake, rumors of an unusually aggressive Gyarados causing trouble for fishermen and travelers. When you finally make the journey, you're met with the striking sight of a crimson-colored Gyarados swimming in the middle of the lake, instantly signaling to experienced players that something unusual is about to happen. In Pokémon Gold, Silver, and Crystal, as well as their Heart Gold and Soul Silver remakes, this encounter serves as an important plot point. The red Gyarados is the result of Team Rocket's experiments with a radio signal designed to forcibly evolve Magikarp into Gyarados. In the case of this particular Pokémon, the evolution was unnatural, and its appearance became permanently altered. This in-universe explanation gives the shiny mechanic a lore-based reason for existing in the game's world, making it feel less like a random stroke of luck and more like a deliberate piece of storytelling. Battling the red is a challenge, especially if you're unprepared. It's a high-level opponent with strong water and flying-type moves, such as Hydro Pump and Dragon Rage, which can catch you off guard. Adding to the pressure is the fact that this is your one guaranteed chance to obtain a shiny Pokémon in the Johto games. While other shinies are astronomically rare, appearing at odds of roughly 1 in 8,192 in these older games, this Gyarados is scripted to always appear shiny, a bright red symbol of rarity. Because of this, almost no player is willing to let the battle end without successfully catching it. Strategically, using moves that inflict sleep or paralysis is a good way to improve your odds of capture, as is bringing along a Pokémon with False Swipe to ensure you don't accidentally knock it out. Many players save their Ultra Balls, Great Balls, or even a Master Ball for this moment, though the Master Ball is often seen as overkill since it's meant for legendary Pokémon later in the game. Still, for some trainers, the peace of mind is worth it to secure such a unique catch. Once caught, the red Gyarados becomes a point of pride in your collection. You can display it in battles, trade it to other games, or simply keep it as a trophy. In the remakes, it even appears differently in the overworld when you let it follow you, further emphasizing its special status. Because it is shiny by default, it also served as many players' first introduction to the concept of shiny Pokémon in general. For countless fans, this moment is what sparked a lifelong fascination with hunting for other color variant Pokémon. In terms of cultural impact, the red Gyarados is one of the most referenced Pokémon in the franchise's history. It has appeared in the anime, been featured in trading cards, and is frequently brought up in discussions about the most iconic moments in Pokémon games. This notoriety comes from more than just its rarity. It's the way Game Freak tied this special Pokemon into the story in a way that made it unforgettable. Catching the red Gyarados is also the gateway to the next major plot development in Johto. After dealing with it, you'll meet Lance, the Dragon-type master who plays a significant role in taking down Team Rocket's Mahogany Town hideout. This turns the encounter into a key narrative moment that propels the player deeper into the region's storyline. What makes the red Gyarados especially unique compared to other rare Pokemon is the combination of guaranteed rarity, visual impact, and plot integration. Most rare Pokemon are memorable because of how hard they are to find or catch. This one is memorable because the game makes sure every single player experiences it, ensuring it becomes a shared moment for everyone who plays through Johto. Even years after its debut, catching that gleaming red serpent in the Lake of Rage remains one of the highlights of any Johto playthrough, a perfect mix of rarity, challenge, and narrative weight that few Pokemon encounters can match. So next time you're exploring the Johto region, keep your eyes open and your Pokeballs ready, because you never know when a legendary opportunity might appear